Here.
Kathy Pucci. Here. Andy Selhertz.
Here.
All right, the first item on the agenda is our minutes from our last meeting dated June 14th. Are there any comments or questions regarding that?
Move to approve. Second.
To approve the minutes, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, moving on to our legislation this evening. The first item we have is Resolution 2021-21. This is the tax budget for next year. This is up for third reading adoption. Any comments or questions on this?
Move to recommend adoption. Second.
To recommend council adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, then we have Resolution 2021-23, and this is dealing with essentially the unpaid cost for grass cutting. It totals $1,200, and this is on second reading, but hope to pass by suspension of the rules. Are there any comments or questions on this?
Move to recommend emergency adoption. Second.
To recommend council adopt by emergency, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 2021-24. This is the resolution that we had our special meeting about last meeting. Then, of course, we talked about this at length at the first reading. And this is the construction budget for the City Hall project, or City Center project, $21,312,772. Are there any additional comments or questions regarding this?
Move to adopt. Second.
To recommend council adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Right, then 2021-18, this is for the sale of the bonds for said project for a not-to-exceed cost of $25 million. Again, this is on third reading. We've discussed this already twice. So are there any additional comments or questions regarding this?
Move to recommend adoption. Second.
To recommend council adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Right, and the last item we have for finance for legislation is Resolution 2021-26. And this is for the Laborers Local 860 contract. And of course, Mr. Butler sent that to us. He'll be here a little bit later, by the way, I think 6:30.
Yes.
Right, he'll be here. So if you have any questions on this from Mr. Butler, we can ask them when he gets here for committee of the whole. But are there any other questions to ask regarding this? This is on first reading, but as typical with these contracts, we hope to pass by suspension of rules.
Move to recommend emergency adoption. Second.
To recommend council adopt by emergency, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Mr. Reviews, did you want to wait to the council meeting or the committee of the whole to go over your report?
Yes.
Anything additional to report now?
No, nothing other than what was in my report.
Very good. Mayor, anything?
Just one thing, as far as the withholding tax, today, conference committee came out on the temporary withholding tax, and it seems like the Senate and the House are both going to pass a budget that contains allowing for the withholdings residents to ask for refunds for 2021, not for 2020. Just keep in mind that there are still pending lawsuits in relation to that, though. And then the broadband restrictions that they originally had in there, they removed for public entities, and they increased that budget by $250 million. And then the open meetings, where it allows electronic participation, that is not going to be continued. So this is still moving through, but they'll have to pass a budget by tomorrow. So this is what we presume is going to push through with the withholding tax. I'll let you know for sure.
Okay. Anyone else in the committee have any comments or questions? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Good. All right, call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Mary Jo, can you call the roll, please?
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Mary Bell Beer.
Here.
Oh, there it is here. Kevin Tansky.
Here.
Sue Grodick.
Here.
Ron Van Kirk.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Here.
Andy Selhertz.
Here.
First item is our minutes from our last meeting dated June the 14th. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
To approve the minutes, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bell Beer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Abstain.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, a couple of items from our last meeting on the agenda. The first is Ordinance 2021-17, and this will allow the city council to meet virtually going forward under the home rule provision. And this is up for, I believe, third reading. I have a second, but I believe it's third reading adoption. That was my mistake. I typed it in. Are there any comments or questions on that? All right, I'll make a recommendation that council adopt.
Second.
To recommend, council adopt Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, next is 2021-19. We discussed this at our last meeting as well. And this is adding an additional way to communicate with residents in regards to high weeds and grass violations. In addition to mail, also some other method. We talked about door hangers, et cetera. All right, so that just adds that availability to our ordinance. We hope to pass this by suspension of the rules this evening. Are there any comments or questions on this? I'll make a recommendation that council adopt by emergency.
Second.
To recommend, council adopt by emergency Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, then, two other pieces of legislation new this evening. The first is Resolution 2021-25, and this would place a moratorium on the acceptance and processing grading of applications for certain types of discount stores. And so I will turn it over to the mayor for her explanation on this.
Sure. We're seeing a trend in a lot of cities right now where we're getting a lot of small box discount stores. Given decisions from last planning commission and how far off our zoning code update is, I think that this allows us some room to have some discussions on where we go from here with our zoning code update and what we allow. This is a model that was taken out from a couple different communities, and that's about it. I think, because it's going to take such a long time for our zoning code update, we have to ensure that we have proper protections in place that we can plan for the future.
All right, when it says small box discount stores, what are you referring to? Like, what, can you give me an example of like what your kind of store?
A dollar store.
Like a Dollar General.
Mhm.
And
We also have a good number of them in our community too. So legally, we could do this, but, talking to Kevin, I remember when I was on city council, we talked about Lone Max stores, and we did, numbers based upon proximity. Well, he doesn't believe that that would be upheld legally. So he worded this in a way where we can really have a dialogue about this going into the future.
I guess I'm just wondering, has there been like a huge push for these types of stores in the city? Or,
Well, there wasn't a huge push for billboards before we got an application on Planning Commission for a huge billboard, and realized we were not in a good legal position to deny it. So I'm the type of person, I'd rather be proactive than reactive.
and I'll open the floor here in a second, but as I was reading through this, to me, the legislation more seems as a preference as opposed to actually something that would be like legally binding, I guess. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, if you look at the legals of it, you can look at, and this is where we would have to protect the city, is going into the research to show what the ramifications are having small box stores like this in certain areas. If you go to certain high law firms, there are provisions in certain retailers that say that they will not locate to a shopping plaza where a dollar store is located. So they won't even search in certain areas. So say something like Bidoff Plaza, because it has a dollar store in it. You have hundreds of stores that will not locate to that plaza because of the fact that there's a dollar store in it. So it puts us at not a great competitive advantage of that being there. I have no issue with the fact that their residents want to use the small box store, but I don't think it necessarily is the greatest economic driver to a city. So I think you have to be careful.
What else on council?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I also agree that we should be proactive with this, and what many shoppers in the stores don't realize is that they're actually paying more than if they went to the store. Like, it's really easy, like, oh, this is $1, this is $1, but I think it's actually in here when you like look at what you could get in a different type of store, like a grocery store or a Mark's, like how much you're paying per ounce, per pound, something like that. They're actually paying a lot more per, let's just call it unit measure. And they are not good for the community either. So I have no problem with placing a moratorium.
Anyone else?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I guess my biggest, like, Mrs. Pucci just mentioned Mark's. In my mind, Mark's is a discount store. So I don't see how Mark's is different from Dollar General. Like in a legal, they're retail. They might offer different products, but I couldn't, in my mind, really differentiate. So that's really what I don't understand.
And
I don't understand what the definition is of a small box discount store.
go ahead.
Could it be like with Mark's, it's going to have liquor permits, it's going to have frozen foods, fresh fruits, a deli section, while like a Dollar General is probably just boxed items, I mean, by the content of what's in the store also.
I mean, that's kind of splitting hairs because the Dollar General at Off Plaza does have, not produce, but it does have beverages, it does have
Frozen stuff.
frozen items, milk.
I understand where you're coming from. I get the idea behind it. I don't like the idea of telling a store they can't be here because we don't like the store. And that's, to me, kind of seems like what we're doing is like because we don't like the fact that they're attracted to this area, so we're gonna pass a law saying you can't come here. I get where you're coming from. I understand what you're saying. And I don't even necessarily disagree that, it may not be what we would like to see there, but at the same time, it kind of goes back to the discussion we had on Sheets, when they wanted to put Sheets up on Tiedemann Road. I don't think anyone on the council at the time was really in favor necessarily of having another gas station up there. But at the end of the day, it was like, well, it's property that's zoned that way. Who are we to say that you can't?
Well, it wasn't zoned that way. They opened the door on the conditional uses to allow that type of property.
Right.
But, I think that it goes back to my point is that you are directly asking other businesses not to move in there. If there are restrictions on certain retailers that they will not relocate to certain areas because of these stores, I don't know about you, but I get resins all the time. Can we have this store? We have this store. If it's detracting certain retailers from coming here, that may be a little bit better shopped at, then I think that it's something that needs to be considered. Does it need to be considered tonight? No. Do you have to make a decision tonight? No. But I do think we have to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem having a conversation about it. It is on there, asked to pass by emergency this evening.
Well, I was on vacation last week, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mary Jo put suspension on everything because it's the last meeting.
Okay.
May I be recognized? The way I'm looking at this is that basically if we pass this, whether we pass it tonight or if we have further consideration for another reading, it's placing a moratorium on these so that we have more time to gather more information, as the mayor said. So I do understand the concerns about trying to tell, a business, you can't come here, we don't like you, or anything like that. But I do think being an inner ring suburb in the position that we're in, and we do have a hard time attracting some of the types of amenities and retail stores that we'd really like to see, and I'm hopeful that if just, we get that one thing to turn, and I'm not saying this is gonna be it, but we get that one thing to turn the corner, like we were talking about the possibility in the master plan of doing something much different up at Bidoff Plaza, possibly a mixed use. And I think we just need that one thing to turn for that to then have other good things happen. And I think this just buys us some time to collect the information and see exactly how this could be negatively impacting us. And Mr. Butler's here now, so maybe Mrs. Groda could ask her a question about Marks versus the small box discount.
Hi, Kevin. Did you hear Mrs. Groda's question?
I did not hear the question.
Would you mind repeating?
No, not at all. It says small box discount stores. How does that differentiate Dollar General from Marks? Because in my mind, they are very similar. And the differences really are just splitting hairs.
I don't know if Marks is less than 15,000 square feet. We've done a sort of calculation on that square footage. It's possible that Marks would be a larger store than 15,000. In fact, it's quite possible. I think the definition of, well, first of all, let me say this, the definition of small box discount stores came from other municipalities' legislation. I didn't invent that, nor did the mayor. But somebody did, and my suggestion is that it's very likely the case that 15,000 square feet is a magic number. And it's sort of, we know it when we see it. It's a larger store would be large box, and those standalone dollar stores or the ones within shopping plazas that are smaller and footprint would be 15,000 or less. And we'll confirm that though between now and the time we meet.
Then I'm going to throw another type name out there. Big lots.
Right.
I mean, they're big, and all of us, I don't think any of us would deny that they are a discount store,
Yeah.
period.
Look, I think that's a very fair question in terms of competition. And so I most certainly, as the city's legal advisor, would not suggest that we pass legislation that would outright ban any of these businesses or do anything more permanent than a moratorium. The thing that I'm most comfortable with is a moratorium because it enables us to study the land use impact, which is what you are permitted to study when you do this kind of thing. And it's temporary in nature. And it happens to be that we're studying the zoning code right now. So it's a good time. If you're going to impose a moratorium, now is a good time because we're just about to engage in this extensive overview of the zoning code. That's all I would be willing to do. And if you don't have a hard and fast answer to the question you've asked, which is a very good question, you shouldn't be permanently regulated. You should only be temporarily regulated. You should try to figure out why that's a magic number, why 15,000 square feet or less is important versus 15,001 square feet or less. I just don't have an answer for you tonight. So, but I will try to at least distinguish what it means to be small box versus large box.
And I guess I'm also hinging it on discount stores, just as much.
It's a fair question. And I think the questions that we would have to answer in a review would be, is there a significant detrimental land use effect that these businesses bring to a community? It may not just be how they look, because you can regulate how things look. It has to have some sort of detrimental impact on things like property values and crime, impact on traffic, negative impact on traffic, negative impact on city services. Those are the kinds of things that zoning codes allow you to consider when you regulate the land use. If you can't find a direct connection between small box discount stores and those kinds of adverse impacts on a community, you should be regulating separately. You should be regulating them with everything else. This would give us an opportunity to study that and look to the national stats and try to flesh out whether or not the impact is as great as we think it is.
Mr. Rutland, you said shouldn't legislate. This is temporary, I understand that, and if we're going to do this, it's going to be for longer than December. If you're going to do it for the zoning, it's going to take way longer than 6 months to do the zoning. Writing the zoning code is going to be much longer study than that. But can you? I mean, can a city just say, we can't put this here anymore because we don't want it here?
You can if you have a sneaking suspicion that there is a detrimental land use impact.
So it has to fall in that specific parameter. You have to.
Yeah.
It has to be. You have to prove it.
Legally sneaky.
I know. Yeah, right.
Well, I don't
I'm
want.
giving you a lot of confidence.
I don't want that. I mean, I don't want there to be.
There are some stats out there, we think, that bear out that places like Dollar General and other typically standalone discount stores have a detrimental impact on the property values in the community. You could write some zoning legislation around that if that's true.
Like, for example, you could say it can't be standalone. Like right now, the one in Vedal Plaza is not standalone; it's in a plaza.
Correct.
So that would not have that effect as it did in the standalone ones.
Correct. Correct.
Do we even have any standalone ones? Because the Family Dollar isn't standalone either.
Right.
The Dollar Tree's in Plaza too.
The idea behind a moratorium.
Dollar Tree, that's what I meant. Yeah.
The idea behind a moratorium is to prevent that from happening. But it's, it's all, you always are putting yourself on more perilous legal footing. This is not news to anyone. When you try to regulate a type of business out of existence, we are asking, we've done it with billboards, a type of business, a type of sign, by moratorium. We have outright banned medical marijuana dispensaries because the state allowed us to do that. We talked about it with self-storage facilities. I think we've done it with self-storage facilities. We put a moratorium on those. Right? And now we've got two more in front of us tonight. You do put yourself on some less than perfect legal footing when you do temporary moratorium. But you also do that because you think there's something to be studied there, and you're only going to take a fixed period of time within which to study it. So you're not going to deprive someone the use of their land permanently while you study. That gets you around the constitutional issues, the takings issues, and the due process issues. It's got to be temporary, it can't be forever. You have to just legitimately study it, and you ultimately find that stats don't bear out the need for regulation targeting a specific industry or a specific type of use. You can't regulate.
So if the goal.
That's what makes me feel more comfortable
No, I
doing
understand,
things on a
yes.
temporary basis.
So if the goal behind this is to allow us to study, Mr. Butler, to study the zoning code, why the end of this year is because it's going to take way longer than that to do this.
I think because the end of this year gets us in a position where we have to study it as part of our initial review of uses in the zoning code, which kicks off next month. And if we need more time, we'll ask for more time. But I think a 6-month-ish limit on these kinds of moratoria is important. It shows the rest of the world that we're serious about it being temporary. And if we did it 2 years, for example, some communities do 2 years. Maybe you're more realistic in terms of what the pace of government is, but I don't want to give us 2 years, because I think that becomes another fact that works against us in some sort of litigation. I would much prefer to have a shorter period of time in which we begin the study, we need more time to rest.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Butler? All right, that is on first reading this evening. So we can, my recommendation will be, and I'll recommend this in council, that we do discuss this more in a committee meeting, but
Public safety.
Thank you, public safety.
Environmental.
There for a second. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, then the last thing we have on the agenda this evening is Resolution 2021-27. This is an issue that was discussed in the past as well, and this is in regards to banning the use of residences or short-term residential real estate rentals, i.e. Airbnb, Vrbo, places like that, and again through December 31st of this year. Right. Are there any comments or questions regarding this?
I guess I'm interested in hearing what the current issues are.
Yes.
Sure. We've had one, the last time we talked about this, we had one particular house that was stemming a lot of problems. Now we have another house that's on Memphis Villas.
That's what it looks like from the.
I thought it was Torrance,
pulling
but
up.
Meg pointed out it was on Memphis Villas. But we have a lot of complaints from the neighbors. There's a lot of parties there. It allows up to 15 people per night in the Airbnb. That's a lot of people for a bungalow, which just sort of acts as a way to have a party. And if you've watched the news, and we've talked about this the last time, there's not always the best things that happen. There was a shooting that was off of Denison at one point. Somebody got killed. I believe that there needs to be some type of regulation. Kevin, Mr. Butler, suggested that we do a moratorium until we could figure out how to proceed from here. The issue kind of died, and it's going to keep coming back up. So I, again, would rather take some action. I told Mr. Van Kirk that my preference would be to have legislation that actually goes to a vote. And if your answer is no, that's fine. But I'd like it to get to the point out of committee for a vote.
Anyone else?
May I ask a question? So, don't people have to so are they registered with the city?
They refuse to respond to requests for registration.
And we don't have any recourse?
At this point, no. I mean, the building department has done a lot of things to try to get a hold of this person in multiple different ways, and they're just not replying. So.
And Mr. Butler, is there anything else we can do? That they're refusing to reply or respond to us?
We could create a nuisance. That just takes a long time.
Yeah, as I see it, there are two primary ways to enforce against behavioral issues. One would be to ensure that the property owners register as landlords, just as they would if they occupied a longer-term rental. That would at least give us some licensure enforcement capabilities that we don't have right now. And two would be to use the criminal activities nuisance ordinance to our advantage with respect to those properties, which is a bureaucracy that is sometimes a little unwieldy and is not popular right now. Typically, around Northeast Ohio in particular.
I understand the ramifications of that.
But it's still being used in cities. That'd be how I see it. I think the chief complaint is that with the type of rental we're talking about, which is online based, the owners are not thinking about municipal regulation. And maybe living in their properties periodically, permanently, we don't know. they're just not thinking about themselves as landlords. It's been difficult to get their attention. But, again, this begins the conversation. It doesn't necessarily, it just begins it.
And are we still having an issue with the original house?
That one turned into a full-bore rental, which is fine. It's
Okay.
registered now,
Okay.
not the short-term problems with people in and out.
Mr. Butler, if we, I'm sorry. go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if we are having documented problems, can't we contact Airbnb and report this to
Let me
them?
ask that question. I just pulled up that listing that you're speaking of. It says right on it, no parties or events. It's listed right on their site. So I know that, because I use Airbnb quite often, that they're very strict when it comes to that kind of stuff. And if you file complaints with them, they will follow up. At least that's been my experience with it.
Ron, when you had these Airbnbs, were they 10, 15 foot from another property?
Oh, yeah.
And was there a constant, the problem that I'm hearing, and I get it from the residents, is you have different people coming up that driveway continuously. They don't know who's gonna be there from day to day. That's how scared the older generation is. And I can't blame them. When you have somebody walking up a driveway in the middle of the night and you've never seen them, what do you want 60, 70, 80-year-old person to do? Call the cops every time? Hey, I don't know what's coming up this driveway again. And this is what the problem is. Not about banning a company to try to make money. It's about the safety and security of the residents, period. When you have, and I call them strangers because we don't know who they are, coming up that driveway, maybe 3 days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. The older generation, I mean, they're in bed, and you're coming up the driveway midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You have no idea on what's going to happen next. You don't. And they're not used to a situation like that, especially when this city has never ran with those things in the city. And I think that's where your problem is. And I think if the more these Airbnbs come in, the more we're going to get complaints. I sure don't want one next to me, because it's just going to start over and over and over.
Mr. Bell, has the city filed complaints with Airbnb?
No, my department, I have no idea.
Just one.
Not that I know of. But you have to understand, these issues bounce between police and building.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are they registered? Is it on Airbnb or is it on a
It's
different?
on Airbnb.
I have it up right now, and I mean, it's very clearly spelled out, no parties or events. I mean, it's right on there, so. Oh, yes, it is. It's put it up. Yeah, and I mean, I'm on there right now. There's only that I see 2 in the city.
Ron, I think there's, I was looking earlier today, like 4 on Airbnb and then 1 on VRBO. That was it looked like a different property from the other 4 I saw. You had to kind of like zoom into the map to make sure you were Brooklyn.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this? And I will do the same. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Butler, when we talked about this previously, you made clear that even if there was a permanent ban, houses that are already functioning as short-term rental would be allowed to continue. So even if we did this tonight, those 5 properties would be allowed to continue.
That's correct. They would, that's correct.
So that
You can regulate businesses in 2 different ways. You can regulate them by land use. You can also regulate that by operations. We have a business regulation code where we regulate things like food trucks. And we have a zoning code where we regulate land use. Moratoriums are usually used with respect to land use regulations. And I would think that if we were to actually map out where these kinds of rentals could and couldn't go, based on the intensity of the use, they'd be in the zoning code. That regulation would be in the zoning code. If we were instead to place certain operations-related restrictions on short-term rentals, they could go either in the property maintenance code or in the business regulation code outside of the land use zoning code. So, either way, I don't think either way the moratorium is not going to prevent existing use. Those properties that are existing from continuing. And if there were a permanent land use regulation created in the zoning code, those uses would be considered legal nonconformities unless they were illegally operating in the wrong type of district as it is. So, I don't know where all this stuff is. The short answer is yes, they can continue for the second.
Any other comments or questions? And I would take the same approach with this as I with the other one, is that we would refer it to the, and I told the mayor, of course, we can discuss it in committee and then go from there as far as a full council vote.
And if I could just suggest maybe the chief could contact Airbnb. I mean, I think when a police chief, I think that carries a lot of weight. We've experienced that in the past. I think that, generally people take it pretty seriously when they're contacted by a police department about what's going on. Because I think there's two things here, like what are we going to do moving forward? But this is still it's in existence now, so I think we need to try and figure out how to solve the current problems that are going on.
And from my experience, just with specifically Airbnbs, who I primarily use, they have pretty much a zero tolerance policy. I mean, if you're violating their rules, they'll just kick you off their
Right.
site. They're not going to mess around. So, with that's my experience. So I think that's a good idea to have the police department reach out to them. Right? Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, that's all we have for our agenda this evening. Mayor, or anyone else have anything to add?
No.
Okay, I'll make a.
Mr. Raguse.
Okay, right, that's just fine. Right, make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
To adjourn, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Mary Bellbeer,
Here.
Kevin Tansky,
Here.
Sue Grodick,
Here.
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz.
Here.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the chance that we have once again to gather as a city council administration tonight. We thank you for the residents that have taken time out of their day to be here to share, express their concerns and see what's going on in our city. Father, we thank you for the privilege it is to live in Brooklyn and for the wonderful blessings that you give to us each and every day, allowing us to be a part of this city. We thank you for our safety forces and the hard work that they perform every day to keep us all safe. We pray that you'll please continue to protect them. Lord, as we get ready to celebrate our country's birthday here this next week, we thank you for the United States of America and the freedoms that we have. We pray that you'll help us to always remember those that have protected our freedoms in the past and continue to do so today. Lord, please bless our meeting, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you for being here this evening. The first item on our agenda is our approval of minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting dated June the 14th. Are there any comments or questions regarding those minutes? I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes of June 14th, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
And then we did have a special meeting on June the 21st, 2021, and that was to discuss Resolution 2021-24, which will be on third reading and adoption this evening. Are there any comments or questions regarding those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, June 21st, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Abstain.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we have a proclamation, so I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Council President Van Kirk. Well, tonight I have the honor and privilege of recognizing one of our own Brooklyn residents, Jenna Young. Would you come forward, please, and bring your family? And also Dr. Ted Caleres, our head track coach for the school, Jason Hubble, the athletic director, Jim Verba, and the high school principal, Brian Hare. And if I forgot anybody else, come on forward. Hi, we done? So Jenna here, she was the 2021 OHSAA Division II High Jump State Runner-Up. Jenna had a remarkable track and field season. Jenna is the Division II Austintown Fitch Regional High School Jump Champion, Division II Perry District Champion, and the High Jump and 100-meter hurdle, and CVC Metro Division Champion, and the High Jump and 100-meter hurdle. Jenna scored a total of 211.25 points throughout the track season, and she broke the Brooklyn High School 100-meter hurdle record with a time of 16.35 seconds. Jenna broke the Brooklyn High School high jump record with a jump of 5 feet 6 inches and earned the title of state runner-up, as well as all Ohio and academic honors at the 2021 OHSAA Division II State Championships held on June 4th, 2021. Jenna is a remarkable individual who represented her well in Brooklyn well, and for that, I recognize her with a proclamation today on behalf of the City of Brooklyn, the City Council, and myself. Congratulations. Mr. Clares or Dr. Clares? No? Brian?
Yep, the chair's gonna do it all.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council, for having us here this evening. Obviously, it's a great honor to have one of our athletes recognized here this evening and your continued support of our schools. Jenna accomplished a lot of great things. I think one of the things that we want to highlight here, though, is not only her athletic accomplishments, but also her earning academic All-Ohio. So when we talk about our students, we want to offer well-rounded students with the opportunity to not only be successful academically, but also athletically. So I have a couple things for you to hang on your wall, Jenna. First, I have your 2021 OHSAA Division II State Runner-Up for high jump. I have your selection of all Ohio for Division II for track and field. And as I noted before, something that's very important, all academic Ohio for Division II as well. Just a special note and thanks to her parents who, a lot of great kids go to Brooklyn every day and they're supported by their families in the Brooklyn community. Coaches spend countless hours supporting our athletes in our schools, and Mr. Verba, who keeps all the wheels in motion in that throughout the season. So again, I'd like to thank everyone here this evening and thank you for this recognition for this young lady. The mic is yours.
Thank you.
She has all these things that hang on the wall. Let's put your name there
I swear I'm a professional.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Jenna. Jenna, what year are you in school?
I'm going into June.
Also, we should expect to see you again here next year, right? Very good. Congratulations. That's awesome. Good for you. That's great. Congratulations. And to your family and all the Brooklyn staff that helps out. That's great. Thank you, Mayor, for that. That was a very nice proclamation. At this time, we'll have the public session. If anyone in the audience is in this say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer.
Victor, we can always count on you.
I'm sorry I didn't bring a long list with me. I know I've brought this up before, being the squeaky wheel. I know we have our own tire machine, if I'm not mistaken, for fixing the streets, the cracks and everything. Any chance they're ever going to repair the park back there, the road? I mean, the cracks keep getting wider, the grass keeps growing, and you start filling them now, and it'll be a whole lot less savings. They have to repair them, and people tripping over stuff. That one section, repair section, and it's getting real crumbly. If we didn't have the equipment, I'd say it was different, but you don't have to bring them in. They're already there, if I'm correct. And that's all for tonight. I'll wind up some more next time.
Thanks, good. Anyone else? Very good. We'll now move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We begin this evening with the Finance Committee. We met this evening at 6:15 to discuss the following. First item was Resolution 2021-21. It's the tax budget for the fiscal year 2022. The committee did recommend the council adopt. Resolution 2021-23. This is assessing unpaid costs of abating nuisance. It's essentially grass cutting violations that the city has had to come in and cut the grass, and those will be abated and on their property taxes for a total of $1,200. And council did recommend that we pass by, or excuse me, the committee recommended we pass by suspension of the rules this evening. Resolution 2021-24 is on third reading. This is approving the construction budget for the city center project, and the maximum price is $21,312,772. The committee did recommend that council adopt as well. Ordinance 2021-18. This is providing for the issuance and sale of bonds for the city center project with a up to amount of $25 million. And this is on third reading, and the committee did recommend that council adopt as well. The last thing we discussed in finance was Resolution 2021-26, and this is authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Laborers Local 860, the Laborers International Union of America for 2021-2023. The committee did recommend that council adopt this evening. Finance Committee meetings do take place at 6:15 prior to the start of all regularly scheduled council meetings. With that, we'll move on with our Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. Safety Town 2021 is a one-week course that teaches children safe practices both at school and at home. By utilizing realistic child-sized town designed to provide a complete hands-on safety education. It includes 911 calls, pedestrian, school bus, fire, and seatbelt safety. Location, Veterans Memorial Park Safety Town course. The program is open to Brooklyn residents and students who attend a school in Brooklyn city limits. The fee is $35, includes t-shirt, take-home materials, and certificate. Registration open through August 1st, max 20 per session. Ages, children entering kindergarten for fall 2021 to 2022 school year. Visit www.brooklynrec.com. Session 1, July 19th to the 23rd, 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Session 2, July 19th to the 23rd, 12 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Session 3, August 16th to the 20th, 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Session 4, August 16th to the 20th, 12 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Session 5, August 23rd to 27th, 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, instruction, Friday, graduation day. The outdoor pool will be open July 6th through September 10th. Patrons may purchase a membership online at www.brooklynrec.com or in person at the Recreation Center. Rec Board meetings canceled for July and August. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tinsky. Next up is the Public Works Committee, Councilman Sullivan.
Thank you. Public Works Committee met after the last council meeting on June 14th. We met in conjunction with the Public Safety Committee. Also via Zoom, we had Carrie Wilson from Real Term Energy. We also had the police chief here just to discuss the continuation of the LED streetlight project. The conclusion came is that there were 4 options, 1 and 2. One was to pay for the remaining streetlights directly. 2 was to go on a payment plan through First Energy. Through the committee, we've decided to go with option number 1. There's a savings of about $50,000 to $60,000. Options 3 and 4 involved control options. Talking with Carrie Wilson, there's really no benefit to the city. There was an additional cost of a couple $100,000. So at this point, we're not going to go through with the control options. In our discussions, we've engaged to have Real Term Energy actually do a design study for the remaining streetlights that haven't been converted. The design study actually looks at poles, the type of fixtures on there, the street width, if it's residential, if it's a non-residential street, if it's a commercial street, trying to determine the proper lumenage for the area. Part of the thing what we're also going to do is there's going to be a test project. It's going to be on a residential street where we have 100-watt fixtures. Outlook is one of them where already we've replaced between between Memphis Villas and Orchard, a number of them. We'll put a dimmer in there. First Energy goes at their replacement for 100-watt fixtures is 50. First Energy says, Real Term goes for 30. So what we're going to do in this trial period is put a dimmer on there for a couple of weeks, talk to the police chief, have them determine if there's enough lumenage for it to be bright enough for safety and everything. So we're going to work on the residential street, and we're going to do the same for Memphis Avenue, where the fixtures are 250. First Energy goes at a 130 replacement, and Real Term is recommending a 90 watt lumen fixture for replacement. So the whole process, whole project's still a piece in process. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Selharts. I also want to thank Mr. Selharts for his work on this. This has been a project he's been working on for well over a year with this, and council is on board with changing these lighting fixtures. So once we figure out the exact wattage, you'll start to see a huge difference. So I want to thank him for that. He's done a great job with that. This time we'll have our report from our Planning Commission. Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you. The next Planning Commission meeting will be Wednesday, July 7th at 6 p.m. And there are 2 items on the agenda. The first is a request from Gateway Safety for a freestanding sign for Gateway Industrial Park at 11111 Memphis Avenue. And the second item on our agenda is a request from Mountain Express Oil Company for a conditional use for a gas station in a retail business district at 4295 Tiedemann Road. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. The Committee of the Whole met following the Finance Committee meeting and discussed the following. Ordinance 2021-17 is up for third reading and adoption this evening, and that is amending section 105.03 of the ordinance of the City of Brooklyn. This would allow City Council to meet virtually under certain conditions based upon our home rule provision. Next is Ordinance 2021-19. It is on second reading, but hope to pass by suspension of the rules. This is amending section 521.14 of our code, and basically what this allows the city to do is to notify those that are in violation of the weeds, high grass, etc., to be notified in other ways in addition to mail. That would include flyers, things hanging on doors, etc. Next was Resolution 2021-25. This would place a moratorium on the acceptance and processing, granting of applications for building permits for what is referred to as small box discount stores. We did have a rather lengthy discussion regarding this, and Mr. Butler was able to answer some questions. I do plan to make a motion in the when we go through our legislation to refer this to our Public Safety and Environmental Committee for further discussion. And our last item we discussed was Resolution 2021-27. This would place a moratorium on the granting of application for zoning, occupancy, and building permit approvals for short-term residential real estate rentals, essentially Airbnbs, things of that nature. And once again, I will make a motion to refer this to the Public Safety Environmental Committee for further discussion. Committee of the whole meetings do take place following the Finance Committee meeting. Before all regularly scheduled council meetings, all are welcome to attend. We'll now move on with reports of council. We'll begin this evening with Mrs. Pucci.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate Jenna. She has represented her school and our community very well, and we're all very proud of her hard work, determination, and her accomplishments. So congratulations to her, her parents, and her coaches. I'm going to give a report on the recycling project. So today begins week 3. Just a very brief recap. We did receive a grant from the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, and this will serve as a pilot for other cities in the county to follow. And the object is to reduce the contamination. Basically, contamination is just when someone places non-recyclable items in the recycling cart. Why should residents care? Contamination in recycling has resulted in rising costs to cities. Most other cities do charge an extra fee for our residents, and I personally see this as a way to hopefully avoid these types of fees in the future. Another possible benefit is when Cleveland does resume their recycling program, they actually had to halt it because of their high contamination rate. They could not get a contract. And when they do plan on resuming it, it looks like it's probably going to be sometime next year. We are hoping to be able to resume taking our recyclables to Cleveland. We went from taking them directly right across the street from our city to now traveling 200 miles a week out to Twinsburg. It is an 8-week program, and to make it more manageable, we split it up so each route has been split in half. So the first half is monitored for the first 4 weeks, and then the second half is monitored for the last 4 weeks. So that means in the first half of the routes, Monday through Thursday, we only have this week and the next to get our results. So the results so far is in week 1, Monday's route had 51% of people had contamination in their cart. That was on Monday. Tuesday was 56%, Wednesday 55%, and Thursday 57%. The good news is in week 2, Monday went from 51 to 43%, Tuesday went from 56 to 43%, Wednesday went from 55 down to 40, and Thursday went from 57 down to 42%. So we are already seeing an improvement. We just need to do better. Today we actually had 40%, so that was a small drop from last week as well. Now, the repeats, these are people who on each daily route, they were tagged either the first or second week or possibly both, and they were a repeat. Now for Monday's route, that was 66 residents, Tuesday 57, Wednesday 55, and Thursday 55. So I have been responding to emails, telephone calls, and the social media posts, so please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions or concerns. And I know Mr. Verba has been taking a lot of phone calls and also phone calls to the city garage, so thank you for doing that. This is not something that was just done for the heck of it. This is a real problem, and it's not just in Brooklyn, it's all over the place. And basically non-recyclables being placed in the curbside recycling containers ultimately resulted in China no longer taking most of what they accepted from the US in the past. So basically it created a crisis, and there's very little market right now for a lot of the recyclables. So some of the most common questions or complaints that I'm getting are the following. The first is, why is the cart not collected? So we've been communicating with residents for several years now on what is recyclable and what isn't, and it really has not been very effective. I think sometimes when we get these things in the mail, we kind of think, oh, I already know what to recycle, so we don't necessarily read it very carefully. Some people just don't care and ignore it. So direct feedback is proven to be the most effective, and what that means is when you provide directly to the resident, this is what the issue is, please correct it, and then put it out the next week. Because when the resident has to correct it, that has shown to be most effective. There is a change starting today, which Mr. Verba will explain during his report. Another common question is, why can't we go to another recycling facility, or why can't the recycling facilities change their equipment? The first thing is, all the recycling facilities in the region are the same. And this has nothing to do with their equipment. The recyclables that are taken to these facilities, these MRFs, they have to be able to sell it. So if there's not a market for it, they can't take it. And what ultimately happens is, when there is the non-recyclables, they have to sort it out there manually, and that's why they can charge us a higher rate if there's contamination above a certain level. Plastics, most are not recyclable anymore. And I'm sorry to say that, you know, for many, many years, we used to be able to go by looking at the back, and whatever the number was, we knew, is it recyclable, is it not? You can't go by those numbers anymore, because it actually does not mean that it's recyclable. It basically tells a manufacturer the types of materials that were used to make that product. The only plastics that are recyclable are bottles or jugs, and basically it means that generally, like for the jugs, that it's more narrow at the top than at the base. Bags. Placing recycling in bags is a huge problem. Bags are not recyclable. In curbside recycling, you can take them back to some stores, but you cannot place them in your recycling bins. Another big one is pizza boxes. And honestly, this is always a discussion at my house also, because my husband always says this should be recyclable. Well, they actually have not been recyclable for many, many years. And the reason is that if there's even a speck of food or grease on it, it's not recyclable. And it's almost impossible to have a pizza box without either some small residue of food or grease on it. Another issue that's coming up is the wish cycling, and that's, we want to try so hard to recycle, and we think it looks like it should be recyclable that we place it in, but this actually does more harm than good, even though wish cyclers are very well intentioned. So the bottom line is, we're trying to manage our rising costs, and in order for us to be successful, we all really need to try and do our best. The reason it's called Rethink Recycling is because that's exactly what we have to do. We have to kind of forget about what we knew about recycling in the past, because it's changed. And it's very similar to when recycling first started in Brooklyn. It took some time to adjust, and basically if you had something in your hand, you had to, determine, is this recyclable or is it not? And we're in the same situation. We led the way in Cuyahoga County with our mandatory curbside recycling, and I know that we can lead the way in reducing the contamination. There's some additional good information on Brooklyn's website, which is brooklynohio.gov. There's also very good information on cuyahogarecycles.org, including being able to click on the community that you live in and see exactly what your alternatives are. Like maybe, for example, the plastic bags. You don't want to throw those out. You want to know where can you take them. So there's a lot of good information on alternatives for batteries and a whole slew of materials that cannot go in the curbside recycling. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Bobier.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Jenna Young again. I can only imagine the places she's going to go. I'm sure her family are so proud of her, and all her coaches. It just sounds so exciting for her. I'm so very, very happy. She looks like such a lovely young lady. I'd also like to thank the Brooklyn Acres once again. They have been doing a tremendous job distributing food for those that need it. Last week they didn't deliver, people were able to pick up over $100,000 worth of food, as far as meats and all kinds of groceries, and people were lined up. So I thank them for all their hard work and their concern for the community. Even the day after, I think it was, they did that delivery on the distribution on Thursday, and Friday they had over a $5,000 worth of bread for the next day. So thank you for all you do for our community. And lastly, I'd like to thank Ms. Pucci for all your hard work, your efficiency. You always explain everything so well, and I appreciate everything you've done on that. So you were always a go-to person, you know, when you didn't know. I always thought, and I think you said this to me one time, when in doubt, throw out. I don't know if that's correct, but I kind of use that because sometimes you have visitors at your house and throw things away in the recycling. They think it's recyclable. I know when my kids come over, and I'm always afraid of getting that oops tag, but I haven't got it yet, so I must be doing a pretty good job. And but I appreciate all your hard work. It's amazing how you really spearheaded this. And lastly, I wish everybody a wonderful 4th of July and a wonderful summer, and I hope you have some fun. Thank you.
Mr. Tansky.
Thank you, Mr. Kurt. I hope everyone is enjoying their start to the summer. There are plenty of activities for all to do, whether it's going on a bike ride, taking a walk in the park, or simply relaxing at one of your family fun events, including movie nights or one of the parties in the park. Get outdoors and enjoy the nice warm weather. Check out Brooklyn City website for more information. I want to wish all the residents and their families a very happy and fun 4th of July. And remember to keep all your pets inside during fireworks display. Hats off and congrats to Jenna Young and all her great accomplishments. And that concludes my report.
Mrs. Rodick. Mrs. Rodick.
Thank you. I know I'm 2 weeks late, but I'm so glad that we're back here in person. And this is my first meeting in person in way too many months. It's also been really exciting to see things opening back up in the city, to see what the rec department is opening up, to see what our senior center is opening up. And I look forward to my first summer as a councilwoman being able to be out and about in our community. I'd also like to offer my congratulations to Ms. Young. While her athletic abilities are so exciting, I have to say part of the information that I learned tonight that's the most exciting is that she will be in Brooklyn for 2 more years. So I'm really excited to see what accomplishments she will have next year and the following year. I just want to take one moment to recognize and thank 3 of our council people, including Mr. Tansky, Mr. Selhertz, Mrs. Pucci, for all the work you're doing to keep our city greener. It just makes me really proud to be part of Brooklyn City Council, knowing that that's what a driving force is. I've also learned that I am a wish recycler, and if you were one of the 60% that received tags, know you're in good company. It's not meant to be a punishment, it's not meant to call out. As the teacher in me, it really is meant to give feedback to us, and I appreciate the feedback because I'm often, as Mrs. Balbier is in her house, wondering if something is recyclable or not. And honestly, until this came, I did not realize that all my plastic berry and tomato containers were not recyclable. So not only am I a wish recycler, I have been contaminating our recycling here in Brooklyn for many, many, many months. And I will do better. And I'm sure many of us in Brooklyn will also do better. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Rodick.
Thank you. We had a community cleanup this past weekend along Tiedemann Road with 7 volunteers, including Councilman Tansky and Selchertz, and we collected over 10 bags of trash. Thanks a million to the returning volunteers and to Chris from the rec department who helped collect the bags when we were finished. Thanks also to Andy for constantly reminding Jack that we have the cleanups because it's new. My husband and I used to have a truck and take the bags ourselves, and getting into a new routine is tough. We do have several scheduled cleanups before council meets next. These include Saturday, July 24th at Biddulph Plaza. We'll be meeting in the Giant Eagle parking lot. Saturday, August 14th at Memphis and Ridge in coordination with Old Brooklyn. And we'll be meeting at Brooklyn City Hall. Sunday, August 29th at Memorial Park. And Saturday, September 11th along the north part of Ridge. There's a Welcome to Brooklyn sign when traveling south along the road. we'll meet at Dave's Supermarket on Ridge Road. To register, you can go to volunteer.kab.org and put in our zip code and the keyword cleanup, or you can just contact myself or Councilman Selcharts and let us know what days you would like to come. And if you have any questions, we meet at 9 o'clock at the designated location. We clean up till about 11 o'clock. I hope everyone has a wonderful summer. Like everyone else said, get outside, come out to some of the city events, and I look forward to seeing everyone this summer and back here in September.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Selhertz.
Thank you. As Meg mentioned, we're having the cleanups. If you have a group, if it's from high school or if it's just some other civic group, if you want to do your own cleanup, we'll work with you, try to figure out a target area to work on. We'll just try to make it a nice, good event. As everybody's been mentioning, congratulations to Jenna. There's just a bright future for her academically, athletically, so it's going to be interesting and just fun to watch her career grow. Bubba's Yard, talking about food giveaways. Bubba's Yard is held on the 4th Tuesday of every month. The one that was just held last week seemed to be a little bit lower than usual. Maybe people were thinking it's always the last Tuesday of the month, but it is the 4th Tuesday of the month. So in July, it will be the 27th of July, and August, it will be the 24th. So it is always the 4th Tuesday. A thank you to Mr. Verba and his staff to getting the cigarette butt receptacles installed along the bus route on Ridge Road, and also a few spots on Tiedemann. These are the cigarette butt receptacles we got from Keep America Beautiful. And that's one of the things that's always kind of like a hindrance or just distraction going by the bus stops. Also, everyone, just have a pleasant, super summer with things getting back to normal. Be safe. When you're driving around on the side streets, take your time. Mr. Conjeri, he's passed away a few years ago, but he was always like, one of his last things at the last meeting before summer was always like, be on the lookout for kids. I actually experienced where a child pulled out from behind a parked vehicle. I was coming down the street, had time to stop, but it's an unpleasant feeling. So if you're in a residential street, if you got cars parked in your lane and you've got cars coming at you, maybe wait a second or two. Just slow down a little bit. You never know when a child might pop out from a car, behind a car, door opens. Just give yourself some room. And other than that, enjoy your summer and see you back in September.
Thank you, Mr. Selhertz. As been mentioned several times, this is our final regularly scheduled council meeting for the summer. Our next meeting will take place, at least our regularly scheduled meeting will take place on September the 13th, right here in council chambers. I know it's been said many times, but I do want to congratulate Ms. Young as well. I teach that age group at our school, and you always are looking for a well-balanced student, and I think she epitomizes that. And so I'm very grateful to see that she won those awards, and I look forward, as Mrs. Grodick said, to see a couple more years of her working on that. I do want to wish everyone a happy Independence Day as we celebrate our country's birthday well, most people will celebrate on July 5th since the holiday falls on a Sunday, so July 5th is the official recognition of that. Right, with that, I will hope everyone has a wonderful summer. I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. I just have a few things tonight. I mentioned this last meeting, and I'm glad to be able to give an update. As you recall, NOACA was doing their signalization program right before COVID hit, and they stopped. They said the traffic count wouldn't be high enough. They're going to actually resume that for Ridge Road this fall. So I look forward to that, especially with construction coming along near the highway there next year. I'd like to get that done so we can signalize the timing of all that street, and hopefully maybe it helps with the construction delay a little bit, and then after it's all done, we'll be smooth sailing a little bit more than it has been in that area. I'd like to welcome our new housing manager, Nicole Blunk. She started last Monday. Nicole has a ton of building department experience. Previously, right before Brooklyn, she was in East Cleveland. And so welcome to the team if you see her out there. Also, I want to remind everyone that there are some great events planned this summer. I know that we put everything in the newsletter, and Kevin and Meg already mentioned it, but come out to the concerts in the park. I'm bummed I missed Punkology last week, but I heard it was a great concert. We have, I think, 3 or 4 more. We have another 2 drive-in movies. Just come check out these events. They are a great time. It's just a great way to see your neighbors after being stuck in our house for so long. And then I'm also having some neighborhood gatherings. One at Marquardt Park, actually this Wednesday at 6:30. Just bring a lawn chair. We'll try to do it under the pavilion, but there's not a ton of chairs, so bring a lawn chair. And right before that, we're gonna have the storyboard dedication with the library. We finally have those permanent storyboards up on the new Marquardt path. Everything is starting to look great. We continue to add to those improvements with the bathroom update coming later this year, new cherry trees along the path, and Jack and the rec center are doing a phenomenal job, as well as the service department. They did all of the concrete laying for that pavilion. And let me see if there's anything else I have. Oh, and then another neighborhood gathering, Veterans Memorial Park, on August 18th at 6:30. There's enough chairs under the pavilion here, but if you want to bring your own chair, that's a little bit more comfortable. I look forward to being able to get out there and talk to residents a little bit more. I feel like that, all of us, we thrive on having those one-on-one conversations. We get up here, we have our normal speeches, but we can't be addressing every little concern from the residents, because we would be here all day and not every resident has the same concern. So this really allows us to have that dialogue back and forth and really kind of put our finger on the pulse of what's going on and what are the things that residents are concerned about the most, what they value the most. We'll have a couple of patrol officers out there, so if you have any safety questions, it's a great way for us to get our community policing efforts ramped up again. So I welcome you out, and everyone, I wish you have a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 directors' reports this evening. We'll begin with our Finance Director, Mr. Raguse.
Good evening, City Council.
I'd just like to provide a brief overview of the financial statements for the general fund through May. Overall revenues of the general fund, 57% of the estimated amount, 22% more than last year, $1.7 million more than last year, fully as a result of an increase in income tax collections of $1.7 million, which is outlined in my memo to City Council that was in your board docs packet. So overall revenues are trending very well through the first 5 months of the year. Commitments on the bottom half of the income statement, commitments are 50% of the budget amount and 4% more than last year, which results in an overall ending unencumbered fund balance of the general fund increase of $1.2 million for a fund balance of $17.5 million through May. Also included with the financial report is items as a result of revenue loss due to COVID-19 and the emergency period. So overall, gross loss is $2.5 million through date since the period was set last March. Net loss, taking into account any subsidies or any financial assistance we've received, net loss overall is $1.5 million. On the general fund side, gross loss of $2.3 million. That results in a net general fund loss of $1.3 million as a result of the pandemic. Income tax revenue, just a little brief preview of our income tax revenue collections for June. We received our greeted distribution for June. Overall distributions are $739,000 more than June of 2020. Of that amount, withholding, which is, as we discussed before, which is the base of our income tax collections, increase of $630,000. So overall strong collections for June. And that'll be included with the June financial report that I'll send to City Council in July. That concludes my report. Are there any questions from City Council?
Just one, Tom, and I apologize. I used to try to call you. I didn't have a chance to call you today.
Okay.
The funds that will be distributed based upon what is currently or just getting ready to pass, will that pretty much wipe out the net loss, essentially, from COVID?
Overall, no. General fund, it'll decrease it, but we still have a couple more months to account for in the general fund loss. So it'll take...
Or losses from COVID you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it'll substantially decrease it, but it will not totally wipe it off.
Right. And we don't have a solid number on that yet. We just have a range.
Our estimate, as a result of the legislator including townships, is $1.1 million, just a little bit over.
Solid, that's what's going to be.
Yes, it's a very good estimate from my opinion. The initial estimate was over $2 million. They included townships, which resulted in a decrease of about 50%.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Right, then lastly, from our service director, Mr. Verba.
Good evening. We have been at this recycling project for 2 weeks now, and we have been getting a lot of complaints from residents, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I actually live in Brooklyn. People are yelling and screaming at college students, one of the workers in high school. They get up they're there at 6 in the morning. They go through the trash or through the recycling, doing what they were instructed by the grant written by Councilwoman Pucci. There's really no need to engage in conversation with them. If there is a problem, you can contact myself at 216-635-4219 or contact Councilwoman Pucci. She will get back to you. Also on Facebook, she'll respond to the questions. I've gone over people's houses at 7 at night to explain to them what they did wrong. Some of it is very minor. It's just a plastic cup. But they were instructed to put a tag on that particular toter and leave it to the side, not to be collected. Again, it's a minor violation, but that was what they were instructed to do. We got calls from residents that brought up that their container was full, and what should they do with it? I went over one resident's house, and she had a whole garbage bag full of recycled material. Obviously, that's a violation, so they tagged it, so I just took that bag out and then put it into a regular toter. But this brought up an interesting point that in Hamilton County, they did a similar project, and they did not leave the bins after they were contaminated. This project was a little different. As Councilwoman said, that's how you learn, if you leave it, when you get tagged and you leave it. Well, I don't feel that these young workers should be getting yelled and screamed at. I mean, they were getting cussed at. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. We were getting calls at the service garage, people yelling and screaming at the dispatcher, at myself. I contacted the mayor on vacation, and I said, I just feel that we just can't do this anymore, running it this way. She agreed. So we are now going to mark the toter as if you were in violation, and they are going to mark down exactly, they're going to tag it, mark it, okay, so if it says plastic bag or whatever, they're going to X it, and they're also going to write something on there too, like if it's a Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup, okay? A lot of people think that stuff's recyclable. It's not. So they'll write that down on there for the resident, but we'll still take your container, okay? So we kind of deviated from the original plan, but I just feel that these kids don't deserve this, and it'll be easier for our guys, because our trucks, the original idea was possibly that we would go out on Fridays only and get all the contaminated carts if they were corrected. Well, then our driver is going to have to go out. He's going to have to get out of the cart, check, make sure they didn't get in, or that they got everything out of the cart, get back in, pick it up, and you're talking, I think the first week we had over 570, 600 cans that he would have to do in one day. So just not feasible for us right now at this point. So we changed it, and I hope if everybody still learns their lesson. But again, this isn't really punitive. We're just trying to teach and educate everybody. And again, if there's any questions at all about recycling, Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District website is kind of our Bible. That's where we go to, and they offer us all of, they're actually gave us the grant. So we're kind of following what they accept and what they promote. So any questions at all, you can go on the Brooklyn website, or you can go on the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District's website. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to legislation for this evening. The first item we have is a liquor permit. It's a request transfer at 7104 Bidoff Road. And this is a transfer from one business to another. The police chief has no objection.
I just had one brief question. Do we know, like, was it sold? Is there a new proprietor there, or don't we know?
It was a transfer of persons.
Okay. Move for a position of no objection.
Second.
For a position of no objection, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Abstain.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
For council rules, anytime a council member abstains from a vote, they have to explain why. I do that every time we have one of these. My faith does not deal with alcohol, so I abstain from these type of votes. First item on the legislation is Resolution 2021-21 is up for a third reading and adoption. This is adopting the tax budget for the fiscal year 2022. Any comments or questions?
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-23, assessing unpaid costs of abating nuisance and hazard violations of Section 521.14 of the Ordinances of the City of Brooklyn. This deals with the unpaid grass cutting the city had to do. It's $1,200. It's on second reading, but hope to pass by suspension of the rules. Any comments or questions?
Introduced by all to suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-24 up for a third reading and adoption, approving the construction budget and authorizing execution of a guaranteed maximum price amendment for the city center project. As was mentioned in the financial report, this is $21,312,772.
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-17, amending section 105.03 definitions of the ordinances of the city of Brooklyn. Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-18 up for third reading and adoption, providing for the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $25 million for the purpose of paying costs of constructing, furnishing, and equipping a new municipal building to house governmental operations of the city, including but not limited to City Hall and the police station, and clearing and improving the site thereof, together with all necessary apparatuses thereto.
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
On second reading, we hope to pass by suspension of the rules. Ordinance 2021-19, amending section 521.14, noxious weeds, common weeds, and grass, notice to cut, non-compliance, remedy the city of the codified ordinance of the city of Brooklyn. Comments or questions?
Introduced by all to suspend the rules.
Second.
Sorry, who seconded?
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-25 is on first reading, placing a moratorium on the acceptance and processing, granting of applications for zoning, occupancy, and/or building permit, approvals for small box discount stores, and the issuances of such approvals in the city of Brooklyn through December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency. As I said in the committee of the whole, I'm going to make a motion to refer this to the Public Safety and Environmental Committee.
Maybe we could use.
Yes.
I I'm just hoping that we're gonna meet sooner rather than later on both of the moratoriums so that we get them addressed.
Yes, the chair of that committee is Mrs. Ryan Shockey. I'll work with her. We'll get a meeting scheduled.
Thank you.
To refer to committee, Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-26 is on first reading. We hope to pass by suspension of the rules due to a timing issue. Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Laborers Local 860, Laborers International Union of North America for 2021 through 2023. Comments or questions?
Introduced by all to suspend the rules.
Second.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I don't know, I think someone should, whether it's Mr. Butler or you, just give, the overview that this is, in line with the others and what the raises are, what the annual cost is.
Go, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most certainly, this collective bargaining agreement proposal, which has been approved by the union at this point, is in line with our negotiating strategy with respect to the other unions. Generally speaking, the raises that have been offered are cost of living increases of 3% and 3% in years 1 and 2, and then a reopener for year 3, which permits us the opportunity to sit down at the table at the end of the second year and negotiate further on wages for year 3. This is the final of our negotiated collective bargaining agreements this year, and for this 3-year period of time, and we're pleased with that. There is some give and take found in the agreement elsewhere, and we're pleased with the items that the union conceded on, and I'm sure they're pleased with the items that they were able to get the city to concede on. But generally speaking, we found it to be a useful exercise. The union came with new representatives this year from a different union hall, and they were helpful in getting us to sort of clean up some outmoded language in the old service agreement. So a lot of our time was spent working on some of that language. This is really non-substantive, but still makes for a better agreement altogether. The annual cost of the contract in year 1 would be about $60,000 to $65,000, and in year 2, $65,000 to $70,000. Is that correct?
So year 1 would be 65 to 70,000.
Oh, 65 to 70 in year 1. Sorry. And year 2?
55 to 60,000.
55 to 60. I'm sorry. Year 2 is less than year 1. And that is very similar to the per employee cost to the city for the other union contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Butler for leading the team. I know Mr. Raguse is involved, as are the chiefs and department heads, and I think everybody did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
To suspend the rules, Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
To adopt, Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-27 is on first reading this evening, placing a moratorium on the operation of and the acceptance and processing of granting of applications for zoning, occupancy and/or building permit approvals for short-term residential real estate rentals in the city of Brooklyn through December 31st, 2021, declaring an emergency. And like 21-25, I will also refer this to the make a motion to refer this to the Public Safety and Environmental Committee.
Second.
To refer to committee, Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
That concludes our agenda for this evening. Does anyone else on council, mayor, or directors have anything else they need to add?
Just happy 4th of July, and please enjoy the summer. It's very different from last summer. So hopefully we're all able to take advantage of it and appreciate it more.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
To adjourn, Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed summer. See you in September.